You wake up. 8 hours of sleep. You haven't eaten anything yet. By every known rule, your body should now be burning fat. But in the mirror, the belly fat is still there, unchanged, stubborn. What hardly anyone knows, in the first 45 minutes after waking up, your body already decides whether it will release energy or lock it away for the rest of the day. Not through calories, not through willpower, but through a hormonal signal that is automatically triggered every morning. If you use this moment incorrectly, you program your metabolism before the day has even really begun for stress, storage, and visceral fat. And the alarming part is, most people make this exact mistake before they even drink their first glass of water. To understand why the morning is so crucial, a widespread misunderstanding must be cleared up. Cortisol is not a bad hormone. It is not a sign of weakness and not a flaw of the body. Cortisol is a survival hormone. It makes you alert. It stabilizes blood pressure. It ensures that energy becomes available. Every morning, shortly after waking up, the body experiences its highest cortisol level of the entire day. This natural rise is called in biology the cortisol awakening response. Under ideal conditions, this process is precisely timed. Cortisol rises briefly, activates the metabolism, and then falls back down in a controlled manner. But here lies the critical point. The body does not evaluate this moment neutrally. It does not ask, how many calories have I eaten? It asks, is the environment safe? And this evaluation determines whether energy is released or conserved deep within the body, especially in the abdominal area.
To understand why belly fat in particular is so stubborn, you have to look deeper into the biology of fat cells. Fat is not a passive storage tissue. It is an active hormonal organ. And visceral fat, the fat surrounding the internal organs, is biologically programmed differently than fat under the skin. Up to 4 times more of these receptors in visceral fat tissue. That means your belly hears stress louder than any other part of the body. When cortisol rises, this fat does not respond by releasing energy, but by protecting it. The body does not interpret stress psychologically, but evolutionarily. Stress means uncertainty. Uncertainty means securing resources. And the safest form of reserve is visceral fat. At the center of this process is an enzyme that hardly anyone knows, but that controls every aspect of fat metabolism, lipoprotein lipase. This enzyme acts like a switch. When it is active, it pulls energy from the bloodstream and channels it into fat cells. And this is where it becomes critical. Cortisol activates lipoprotein lipase especially strongly in visceral fat. That means an elevated stress level in the morning is enough to program the body early for storage, even if less food is eaten later in the day, even if the food is healthy. The decision has already been made. The morning is not a neutral starting point. It is a biological window. After sleep, the body is slightly dehydrated, hormonally sensitive, neurally open to signals. In this state, small stimuli act like amplifiers. One wrong signal can turn a natural cortisol rise into a persistent alarm state. And this is exactly where the chain reaction begins that locks visceral fat in place. The first critical mistake of the day often happens before breakfast. Not what is eaten, but what is drunk first. During the night, the body loses, through breathing and evaporation, up to 1 liter of water. The blood becomes thicker, circulation slows. The heart has to work harder to transport oxygen. This additional physical strain is not interpreted by the body as morning grogginess, but as stress. And stress means cortisol rises. There is a second factor added to this. The adrenal glands, small glands above the kidneys, produce cortisol and react extremely sensitively to mineral balance. They require, above all, sodium and potassium to work calmly and steadily. If these minerals are lacking, the body releases more adrenaline and aldosterone to artificially stabilize blood pressure. The result, even more cortisol before the day has even begun.
In this moment, plain water is often not enough. What the body needs is a signal of safety. Sodium fulfills exactly this function. It signals the kidneys. Blood pressure is stable. Resources are available. When this signal is sent early, the body does not need to mobilize stress hormones to protect itself. A large glass of water with a small pinch of high-quality salt can significantly reduce the biological alarm within the first minutes, not as a diet trick, but as physiological calming.
The metabolism does not work randomly. It follows an internal schedule. This schedule is controlled by a tiny structure in the brain, the suprachiasmatic nucleus. This internal clock decides when cortisol is released and when melatonin initiates sleep, and it responds to exactly one signal: light. Many people start their day with artificial light, ceiling lamps, smartphones, screens. These light sources provide only a few hundred lux, too little to set a clear wake-up signal, but enough to trigger restlessness and low-grade stress. The body receives a contradictory signal. It is bright, but not truly bright. It is morning, but somehow not.
Natural sunlight works completely differently. Even on a cloudy morning, it delivers over 10,000 lux and the full color spectrum. When this light hits the retina, the signals travel directly to the hypothalamus. There, they trigger a precise process. Cortisol rises briefly and clearly, and then falls back down in a controlled way. At the same time, serotonin production begins, a neurotransmitter that is later converted into melatonin. In other words, those who get light in the morning prepare their body for better sleep at night. A stable sleep rhythm means more stable cortisol, and more stable cortisol opens long-term access to visceral fat reserves. Coffee is often viewed as the start button of the day, as something that creates energy. Biologically speaking, this is not true. Caffeine does not create energy. It merely blocks a molecule in the brain, adenosine. Adenosine accumulates over the course of the day and creates what is known as sleep pressure. During sleep, it is broken down, but not completely. When the body wakes up, there is still residual adenosine in the brain. If coffee is consumed immediately, caffeine binds to the adenosine receptors and blocks the fatigue signal. The fatigue does not disappear. It is merely stored, like water behind a dam. As soon as the caffeine wears off, usually in the early afternoon, this dam breaks. Energy drops abruptly. The body responds as it always does when energy is lacking. It releases cortisol. This second cortisol spike in the afternoon is one of the strongest drivers of cravings, sugar hunger, and late fat storage. Those who instead wait 90 minutes allow the natural cortisol awakening response to taper off cleanly. The remaining adenosine is broken down. Coffee then acts not as an emergency solution, but as a performance enhancer. Energy without a crash, alertness without a stress signal.
Many morning routines recommend high-intensity training to kickstart the metabolism. For an already stressed body, this can be counterproductive. Intense training creates short-term oxygen deprivation, a hypoxia signal. Biologically, hypoxia is not a fitness stimulus, but an alarm. Cortisol rises further. The alternative is simpler and evolutionarily older: walking, but not because of calories, because of a mechanism called optical flow. When walking forward, images move continuously past the eyes. These visual inputs have a direct connection to the amygdala, the fear center of the brain. Studies show optical flow calms the amygdala. Fear decreases, cortisol decreases. In our evolutionary past, forward movement meant agency. Stillness meant danger. A 10 to 15-minute walk in the morning, ideally outdoors, combines two powerful safety signals: light, movement. The body interprets this combination as, we are active, we are in control, we are safe. And only in this state is the body ready to release energy from visceral fat. The final signal is invisible, and yet one of the strongest: the smartphone. Immediately after waking up, the brain is particularly receptive. A glance at news, emails, or social media instantly floods it with dopamine and cortisol. Before the body has even gotten up, the nervous system is forced into reaction mode. The sympathetic nervous system takes over, fight or flight. A reactive morning almost always leads to a reactive day. Those who avoid the phone for the first 20 to 30 minutes allow the parasympathetic nervous system to establish a calm baseline. This is not a mental luxury, it is metabolic prevention. A brain that starts calmly keeps cortisol lower, not just psychologically, but hormonally measurable.
Wake up. No phone. Hydration with water and salt. Natural morning light. Walking with optical flow. Coffee only after 90 minutes. This protocol realigns hydration, circadian rhythm, adenosine breakdown, and the nervous system. It reduces unnecessary cortisol and signals safety to the body.
and safety is the prerequisite for visceral fat no longer needing to be defended. Most people start their day in resistance against their own biology. Screens, stimulants, rush. And they wonder why the body holds on instead of letting go. When cortisol drops, fat burning is not forced, it is allowed. Weight loss becomes not a question of discipline, but a consequence of a regulated system. This video does not replace medical advice. People with chronic conditions, low blood pressure, or kidney disease should clarify changes with a professional beforehand. Observe your body. Not every reaction is the same. And if you want to understand how your metabolism is truly regulated, share your experiences in the comments and subscribe to the channel.